Okay, remember our end goal is to end up with a data set where we've actually calculated the sales mixes on a month by month basis. So the first step we got to do is we got to go get our original data and we got to join the tables together. So I've opened up a blank Excel just so I can invoke Power Query through data, get data from file, Excel workbook. I'm going to go browse to my Excel file with my original data. That'll load in Power Query. And then I just want to load, I'm going to do select multiple, and I want to load all three of those worksheets. So I clicked on transform data there. I didn't click on load because I want to transform it inside Power Query. So I'm going to start with my largest file by number of rows. And then I'm just going to merge in or join my sales order information there. So I'm going to click on the home ribbon. You go to merge queries as new. And I do this so that I can just kind of stage things. So I'm going to take my sales detail flat file and merge it with sales orders. And since left outer is all from the first and matching from the second, so I want to keep all my line items. And so I'm just going to go ahead and select the columns that I want it to join on. I did a left outer because I want to keep all my sales detail flat file rows. And I just want to merge in the sales order information from it. I'm going to click OK. And then I'll rename this. I'll just call it sales order details. Then I can expand my merge. I'm not going to select all of these because I don't need a sales order because it's already in there. So I'm going to remove the sales order number from this collapsed set of columns. And so when I do that, you'll see I've got sales order dot sales order date and sales order dot sales orders dot customer ID. And we could shorten these. Might help us out. That was just customer ID. And notice that our date isn't really date-like. That's because it came in as a number. And we can actually change that. So we can go to transform and we'll change it to date. Now it looks like a date. Now at this point I want to go ahead and merge in my inventory file, and the only reason we're doing this now is because we need to get a hold of our item cost and item price. We're mainly interested in item price because we want to calculate the total revenue on each line item so that we can roll that up to a month level so we can talk about the sales mix percentage of each product given a denominator of the monthly revenue. So a couple things to keep in mind, you need to know your data. So if I take a look at this, it should be clear that every row here represents one product. Just like if I click on sales order, every row represents one sales order. I know that because sales order number is the primary key and they're all unique. If I take a look at sales detail flat file, every row represents a line item. So those first 4 rows right there are all sales order number 1, and there's 4 different products. So there were 4 products sold on sales order number 1. There was 1 product sold on sales order number 2. It was product 100. So these are like line items on an invoice. And so you need to know what your unit of analysis is or what one row represents. So at this point, these are also like line items. I've just added the sales order information to it. Now I want to take it one step further and just merge in the inventory information. So I just want to match it in there. So that means I want to keep the same number of rows. So I'm going to go ahead and go home, merge queries as new. I'm going to take the sales order details and I'm going to merge in the inventory. on the common column here is product ID. And a left join is what we want here because we just want to take these columns and tack it on the right side. Meaning we want to keep all the rows in the sales order details and just tack on the columns from inventory on the right side. So I'm going to click OK. And I'll rename this. I'll call this all data. Or actually, I'll just call it join data. There we go. Now at this point, I can go select the columns I want from the inventory. I don't need the product ID because it's already there. And I can bring in all the others. I'm just going to clean it up just a bit. I'm going to take out that table name so it doesn't get all, starts to get kind of cumbersome. So again, we then start thinking about what does one line item represent, or what does one row represent. It still represents a line item. And I'll let you convince yourself of that. Basically, if we take a sales order number and a product ID, those become unique. So there should be different dates for every sales order number product ID combination. The product ID is going to determine coffee origin, roast type, and bag size in pounds. So as we change from one product ID to the next, this combination of this combination of coffee origin, roast type, and bag size in pounds is going to change. You'll just have to think through that. The question is, what constitutes a unique row? How do we identify a unique row? All right, so I'm just going to load this in to my Excel spreadsheet, and I'm bringing it back into Excel because the next step is going to be easier to do inside Excel. And it's just nice to have kind of like cutoff points where I know I've accomplished this much and it's good, and so if something happens later on, I can come back to this starting point. I'm just going to save that as, I'm going to call this step 1 joins. That's the output of step 1 join. So I took my original data and I joined it together. And that concludes the first step.